Hello and welcome to a new episode of I Can Do. I'm Benjamin Lee. Really excited to be here with you again, wherever you may be in the world. I'm so thankful that you are tuning in. I know that you're tuning in because you're interested in growing and becoming a better version of yourself and having an I Can Do mentality as well. I'm joined with another fantastic guest today, all the way from Austria. Tina English is with us here today and really excited to have her share her story. We were just talking a little bit before we hit the record button, and it's a little cold there, and it's hot here where I am in Dallas, Texas, or near Dallas, Texas, here in the United States. Tina, it's so good to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for this conversation that we're going about to have.
Yes, yes, so am I. All right, well, let's get into it because you have an amazing story. And, just kind of looking at your bio, you mentioned that you're a dream life mentor. And I know you do coaching. I love to hear more about how did you get to this point in your life now of being a dream life mentor. And I definitely want to know what more about what that is. And also Austria's first Dr. Love coach. So take us on this journey of just some of the amazing things that you've done and how you've gotten to the point where you are today.
Well, I think the story is started basically where all good stories start, at a point where you're low and you think like, oh my God, that can't be it. So for me, that was exactly what happened to me. I was in Snowboard World Cup and I won a race that I thought was great and I needed to win, and then I would experience happiness. So that was what my thought. And then I experienced basically the opposite. I was on my way home and I reflected on what happened, and I felt like, wow, I mean, if this is happiness, that is not enough. Because it was just the same like 5 minutes before I won that race. Nothing changed, and I didn't feel not even a little bit happier. And then I was like, yeah, that is obviously not the way. And I think I was quite intelligent to have the thought that if I win something bigger, it might still not change. And maybe the way to happiness is something different and somewhere else to be found.
Mm.
And then I reminded myself that the year before I was sent to an obligation on holiday and I went to Dominican Republic. And the first time in my life, I experienced people to be really poor, having nothing, but having so much of basically everything. They were so happy. They were dancing in the street. They were sharing this nothing that they had. Like they were inviting me, even though I had more than them. And I was like, okay, maybe you should try something like this. Maybe you should try to look there for real happiness, because maybe this is the way. Because in our Western countries, we are based, our happiness is many times based on material possessions and status and stuff like that. And they didn't have any of this. So they had nothing and they didn't have material possessions, but they were happy. So my next station in my life was going to Cuba, live with these people and learn how to be happy. That was a real big challenge. I didn't know before I went there how big it was actually, because
Yeah,
maybe I
yeah.
wouldn't have done it. It
Now,
triggered a lot
how
of
many
change.
years ago? How many years ago was that?
Oh my goodness, that revealed my age then.
Well, give us an estimate. You don't have to give us the exact year.
It's like 20 years ago. Yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
that's fantastic. So you moved to Cuba, and I'm interrupting here. I just want to mention a couple of things. I'm glad you're talking about happiness. I had a book club last night, at the time we're recording this, and we were talking about that. There's a great book too by Gretchen Rubin, The Happiness Project. And so I think you're touching on some things there where you got exactly what you wanted, and yet you still weren't really fulfilled or happy. So you did something I think we can say kind of drastic, where you're moving to another part of the world. So pick us back up at the story. So you've moved to Cuba. What happens next?
Yeah, I tried to do like their stuff, like really not using money to make me happy, but
Mm.
like really try to not have money, to try live on their standards. And that was a very big challenge because I wasn't used to it. And I was really like, everything that I have built was basically destroyed because of the cultural differences. I didn't even know how to react when they said something. Also, there was a language barrier because I didn't speak Spanish. So basically everything was like breaking down in a moment and I had to rebuild it. like being there, not knowing what's going to happen. And I think this was, even though it was so challenging, it was such a great step towards who I am in my essence. Because in that sense, if you're doing it at home, I'm not saying it's not possible at home, but it's a little bit more challenging, because when you're at home in your own setup, people know you a certain way. No one knew me there, so I could be whoever I was, and I could try everything. So that was the good part, or the easier part. The rest was the difficult part. Well, it triggered a lot of things. I came home and I thought, I think it would be really good if everyone would have such an experience like me.
Yeah.
And this is how I came into coaching. I was trying to figure out a way how I can inspire more people to get closer to their essence, to get closer to who they are. And then I started to do education in all different ways to educate myself to become a coach. And on this way, someone told me, "You are so good at flirting," which was evident. I was in Cuba. I learned it. And then they said, like, "Yeah, you should do some flirt constellations." I was like, "Why not? That sounds like fun." And then I started to do flirt seminars. I wrote a book.
Now tell us, so what's the flirt seminar? What does that look like? Is this is in respect to dating, I take it?
Yes. Well, for me, it was basically because I always found that all these strategies that are out there, they might work, but they didn't bring anyone closer to who they are. And if you have these pickup strategies, yes, maybe you land that person to be with you, but then after 2 months, you're still you. And how do you maneuver them? And so for me, it was always to go a little bit more deeper into your essence and really to find out who you are. Because if you are telling someone whatever pickup line you use and it's coming from you and it's the right person, it's working. So I don't like these fear-based things that think like, I don't know what to say. Be you, that's enough, because the right person will respond to that. So, and from there, I developed it a little bit closer to relationships, because the singles eventually at some point became couples and then needed advice there as well.
Yeah.
And then I found out that, you can advise couples, but if the individual in the couple isn't happy, the problem doesn't really change. So they can make a difference, they can change a little bit, but the triggers, when you don't heal the triggers, they still arrive and the couple is still facing challenges. So I started to go a little bit more back to the individual and coach the individual on being happy. And then I experienced another big life-changing event. I was in Mongolia. I did the Trans-Siberian Railway. Wow. And I jumped off a horse, and suddenly my leg gave in and I was paralyzed. So that didn't, I stepped up the horse and I was good. I jumped down the horse and I was paralyzed on that leg. And that was really life-changing for me. I had a depression. Of course, I didn't work. I lost a lot of things, if not everything in my life. And this was the point when I thought, or when I experienced that life is so short. And I just jumped off a horse and I was paralyzed. It went 1 second. That changed my life. So the same second, like maybe 2 months later or a year or 20 years later, can change my life and I'm dead. And that was making me really conscious about the fact that what I do is nice, but it's not enough. Because I'm not living up to my highest potential. I'm not living up to my highest dream. And I'm having a nice life. I'm having a comfortable life. I'm doing things that I like, but I do not follow every piece of my heart, every dream and everything. And this is when I changed my own life to really follow my dreams. So I can say that for 3 years approximately, I cannot say that I was a complete digital nomad, but I traveled a lot. Until one day that I found that I would like to move to Paris, and that's what I did. Wow. And then this time I created a financial freedom, and my dream life, let's say this way. And then the evaluation came, learning other people to just do this, because honestly, it's a big step. It's a step that takes a lot of courage, but once you're there, you're not looking back for a second.
Yeah, that's awesome. Sign me up, Tina. I love that. So you mentioned a couple of things. So, happiness is something that a lot of people are talking about and want. And I believe happiness is something that we should go after. But it's also, I think, a danger of, pursuing happiness and learning to be happy, where we are in the moment. Like when you went to Cuba, you learned to be happy there or content. And I do think there's a distinction even between happiness and joy. You also talked about suffering and how things can just change in an instant. And I appreciate you sharing that because you're exactly right. Life is so short and we can miss out on the bigger picture. And sometimes suffering, I've used this quote before in previous conversations. I don't know who said it, but they've said suffering doesn't make us unique. How we respond to suffering is what makes us unique. So hearing your story, your I can do story, certainly that forced you to really think more. So you talked about financial freedom. I know that's something that I think more about. A lot of people think about that as well, and happiness is definitely connected to that. Um, for the person out there listening who may not be able to move to Cuba, who may not have had a scare like yours with being paralyzed, with in one of your legs or one of their legs, what tips or recommendations would you give to help them get started in their quest for happiness or living up to their true potential? And then I want to ask you another question.
Well, I think the first thing is that we all know I mean, for me, it was inside of me. It's not that this is not there and I just found it in Cuba or I found it after this struggle. It was in me all the time. I just didn't look there
Mm,
because of whatever. I was lazy or thought that's enough. I don't know if I was ever settling, but I wasn't taking this step back to make a real raw look or take a real look at my life, just be there and look at what you have. And is this enough? Is this what makes you truly happy? Is this what lights your fire and what makes you stand up in the morning and embrace life and be happy that this is the next day where you can make a change for yourself, where you can look at the sun and be happy about it, feel all these amazing energies and do something that you love. And that wasn't the life that I was having. And when I realized how close we are to death, like basically all the time, I just understood that I don't want any of the mediocre anymore. I want this life. And if I just have to live for another 2 months, then at least I want these 2 months to be everything that I wanted. I
mhm,
might not be able in 2 months to have all the dreams,
mhm.
but at least as many as I can. And the
Yeah.
funny thing is, when you're going on this way and when you first take the courage to open this space up for you, then things start to happen because it's at the beginning it's like, whoa, that's supposed to be because the doors they keep opening, and it gets so easy suddenly, as if it was planned this way, but I was just not looking at it. So,
Mm,
and I think the first step that everyone can do is to get real with themselves and to not just like use some coping mechanisms to distract themselves by, okay, let's drink a glass or let's do this or let's do this or, oh, it's okay, it's going to happen maybe next week. But to really sit down and get raw and look at everything that you're in and look at every detail and think, does that make me happy? And if not, the next step is obviously to change something. And maybe it's not possible to change everything in one day because if you're in your normal environment, things usually take a little bit more time because of outside forces, because you have your responsibilities and everything. And that's not the problem. The problem is taking the steps. The
yeah.
first step, the second step, because it's always scary, because always when we look out and go over our own limitations, then it feels like, oh my God, oh my God. I mean, what can happen? The worst is you get back to where you were before. And but
Yeah.
if you experience this little bit and then it's like you open the window and suddenly the first ray of light gets in and you're like, why was I sitting in the darkness all the time?
Yeah.
And why would you close the window? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, yeah. So fear, I think, is you're exactly right. I think fear of, and I like what one person just said, fail, FAIL, is first attempt in learning. And I really like that. That was from a previous guest, Calissa Burt. And yeah, it is something. I think fear holds us back a lot. I think sometimes we're afraid to dream. We dream as children, and then I don't know if we just get stuck in reality or we have too many possessions. Maybe that's something that a lot of people struggle with as well. So what I'm hearing is take massive action, take the steps that you can take, and you have to at least give it a shot to see, hey, give it a shot and these doors may continue to open. Am I right about that?
Yes. And if they don't continue, but you feel still it's your way, then you need to look for other doors. So there are
Yeah.
always doors everywhere.
Yeah.
It's just, it takes a while till when you like forget about what your heart is telling you. It's telling you all the time. It's just very silent. And normally the distractions are very much louder. So we
Hmm.
forget to listen. But
Hmm.
once we check in with our heart and we feel what this inner passion and drive is, and we risk to embrace it and go this way, then it's just like you're unstoppable in a
Hmm.
way.
How does a person know? Maybe you have an answer or you don't. How does a person know when they've reached their true potential? Sometimes when people hear this idea of potential, is it at a certain point? What would you say to, how do we know if you reached, if a person has reached their true potential?
Well, I think there is no end to our true potential. And there is a metaphor that I like to take from work. If you're, for example, an entrepreneur and you think your hour is worth 100 euros, but on your website you put 200, then you probably won't get the 200
Why is
because
that?
your mindset is 100 euros, and because it's your
Oh.
energy that you put in. It's everything that you are, because life is about who you think you are
Mm,
and what you expect to happen. So
hmm.
once you open up, and I also feel it, because I also learned to be open to receive more. It's
Mm,
a process. It's normal. It's also with love and relationships. In the moment that you think like you are not worthy of true love, you accept and settle. The moment that you embrace that you're awesome and you deserve the best, and someone is mistreating you, it's saying, no, why are you doing this? I'm walking away. And that's the same like with all of other things. If you step up internally and believe that you deserve this, then the things can happen on the outside. But before, it's always like you allow the things to happen. And if you don't allow bad things to happen, they stop because you don't
mm,
allow them, because you say stop.
mm,
And I think this is the potential. And I think the potential is basically what you believe your potential is, or how big you risk to dream.
mm. I love that. How big do we risk to dream? So, in other words, if we play small, then that's what's going to happen. But if we play big and dream big, and I like what you said, the person who puts on their website 200 euros, but they're thinking they're only worth, or their services are only worth 100, that they're not going to get that 200. So our thoughts, and is this going more towards the subconscious, with our thoughts, with how we view ourselves, and what we're putting out there? That's what you're saying.
Yep. Actually, I think that is because for me, it felt like this in every area of my life. Once
Mm,
I understood that I'm more, the things came to me. But
mm,
when I thought like I'm not worth it, I think even if they came to me, I couldn't receive it. I wasn't
mm,
able to because I didn't see this as the thing that I wanted.
mm,
Maybe because this is a reaction of fear, because I was afraid, and because I was thinking. I see this a lot with people that want to work on their relationships. So finally, in the single ones, so finally they found a partner that is great, that is amazing. And then it's like they telling me the story, but he is too good to be true. She is too good to be true.
is
Why?
it is
You
that
asked for that.
is that self sabotage?
Kind of, yeah, I'd say.
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting because I've been thinking a lot more about that too. I mentioned a book to you, "The Mountain Is You." Someone else had recommended that to me, and it talked a lot about self sabotage. And there's another author, Gay Henderson. He wrote the book called "The Big Leap." He talks about what's called upper limits, or upper limiting, where things are going so well, it's like, well, wait a second, it's not supposed to go like this, and it's almost like creating this new normal, which you've been able to do in your life. And that leads me to another thought. So, Tina, how do you handle success? And by that I mean, someone has once said, someone once said the greatest danger to future success is current success. So, how do you handle your success? Um, if that makes sense, and how might a person, okay, they're these doors are opening, they're getting the success. How do they maintain that or continue to excel?
So for me, and the more I embraced the possibilities and the more I expanded my own limits, the more I felt naturally gratitude coming to me. So when I don't know, for example, let's say I bought a stock and the stock is rising like crazy and within a short time, then it's not like whoa, oh, oh, and I go celebrate. It's like, oh my God, and I feel so much internal gratitude that it came to me so easy and I didn't have to do anything. So because that's another thing, it was easy, it was simple, there was nothing. It was like just like I opened my arms, it just came, and that makes me so grateful. And the second thing that I feel is happening to me is the more I'm grateful for the things that happen to me, the more I want other people to experience the same. And then I feel it's not just a need, it's a necessity to inspire people to wake up.
Yeah.
I just want to say wake up because that's the only thing, like, shaking them, wake up, go.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. So, what are you doing personally then, where, whether it's habits, routines, strategies, to continue to foster this mindset? Do you ever struggle with going back to that default mode that maybe you had years ago? Walk us through that and give us some thoughts. What do you currently do? Is it journaling? Is it um, I'm sure exercise and different things like that. But what do you do to continue to thrive?
So for me, the first thing in the morning, every day I have my ritual. The first thing in the morning is getting up and do meditation. In the meditation, I do gratitude, I do manifestation things like, I don't know how to say that, but making energies pulsating towards me, some things like that. Just, feeling all these things that come towards me. And as next thing, I do sports, yoga. I take care about me and my body. So the before noon. So it's very unlikely to have an appointment with me before 11 o'clock in the morning because that's the time that I dedicate to me, to my success, and to what's important to me.
Mm.
So, and then the first 3 to 5 actions are in the day are the actions that would bring me the most advancement, I'd say,
Mm.
whether it's business or relationship or whatever I'm focusing in that time. So the first really package of the morning is for me. And then I have my clients. So this is how I basically have my ritual. If I feel there is struggles or if I feel something is off, which could happen if I have a little bit too much to do, too much stress, or things are not absolutely like, life happens. And something happens that was not previewed and it takes completely away my routine, then I would just go back to focus on myself. So I'm
Mm.
not reaching out, I'm not doing anything on the outside, I'm getting quiet, I'm going back to myself, and I try to find myself, my basis, I connect with myself, and I try to come from who I am and where I want to go. So for me, every next step starts by connecting with myself and to understand what is my next step. Because I find when I just follow strategies that are given to me, especially in business, then at some point, sometimes I cannot even take my own decisions anymore because they say you have to do, you have to do, you have to do, you have to do. But actually, I don't understand why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because they tell me and because they say it works. But I lose myself in this. And this is like when I say what you are worth. When you are not growing with the strategy stops to work. So I'm always, for example, if my mentor would say, you need to do whatever, Facebook Live. I do Facebook Live. I don't have problems of talking or anything, but a lot of people don't like that. But if I feel that's not good for me yet, then I have to just expand and feel comfortable in this, because as long as I don't feel comfortable in doing a Facebook Live, probably people won't be excited about my Facebook Live.
Yeah.
So, and I
Mm.
think this is the things, and this is the following of the strategy versus being yourself and growing into being the strategy. So this is
Mm.
my approach
So
to.
yeah, following up on the strategy, being comfortable in the strategy, not allowing outside noises to have a big impact. I'm curious. what's your strategy with social media? I'm not talking about business per se, but social media, leads to a lot of different things. It can cause depression. It can be a time waster. It can bum people out. It can take away happiness. It can just do a lot of things. There's certainly a lot of noise. How do you manage social media if you're on it and things like that? I'm no longer on it, and it's actually been hard to actually stop it, which has kind of been another point of awareness for me. But what about you?
I'm using it just for fun. The moment it's not fun, I stop it. So
Mm.
I don't have an attachment to social media. If I post something, then I post it because I found it funny to post it, or I find it inspirational to post it, something like that. But I don't have this, oh my God, that's just one like. So then it was one like, then no one saw it, or maybe, I don't know, maybe I hadn't the energy at that day. So what?
Yeah.
So I think this is I'm not basing my personality on social media. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's a part of our life. It's fun. It can be fun. It's a great
Hmm.
way to connect to people that are further away. Like, for example, Facebook. I can be in contact with people from Cuba, from Mexico, from everywhere. It's simple. But yeah, that's it. It's fun.
Yeah. I love your energy. I love just what you're talking about here. I'm curious, what other dreams do you have? What else are you pursuing? Because you've done a lot in your life, snowboarding, um, a relationship coach. You've been trained in a lot of different modalities with coaching and things like that. Podcasting, helping other people travel the world. Uh, what other dreams do you have, if you're willing to share?
Wow, that's very difficult because my last dream was to have an apartment with a jacuzzi, and it just came true.
Woo!
And I would like to just sit a little bit in this dream and say, like, wow, it's there and I love it.
Yeah. Now, how
But
long did that take to happen?
the funny thing is, the moment that I decided to leave the apartment where I was living,
Mhm.
I saw an announce online. And I thought, like, oh my God, this looks like what I want to have. And I called and they say, like, yeah, it's already taken. And I was like, oh shit. And then I just was like, okay, let's try this manifestation thing and say, I want this apartment, like not this the same, but some that's just the same, but without furniture, because that was furnished.
Mm,
And it took exactly 2 weeks. And
mm.
then I saw the announce, then I had called, I had a visit, and I signed like 1 week later.
Wow. So walk us through that a little bit more. Did you visualize, you said, okay, I want this apartment, not furnished, but I want a jacuzzi with it. Did you still
The
check things
jacuzzi
out
was
on?
my thing, you know, I
Oh,
put the jacuzzi.
okay, you put it in. Okay. So, but did you still take, what action steps did you still take? Or did you just say, okay, this is what I want and did nothing?
This was really basically where I tried to really try to make energies align with myself, to open
Okay.
myself up to, and to really try to not push anything, because pushing, I always feel like when you have the thing that you pushed, it doesn't feel so much like a success. That is when it comes like a little bit more natural to you. So I really try to open myself up and to have an active I don't know, communication. I didn't talk to the universe, if you want so, but it was really like this part of active opening and say, like, okay, this is what I wanted. Please make it come to me. Give me the opportunity to have this, because this is basically the only thing that I wanted. And yes, of course, I took action steps in the sense that I looked into the annonces and I went and I looked at other apartments. But internally, and this is, I think, my point that I'm always telling to people that I'm coaching, you, I call it resilient mindset.
Mm,
There is no other option. In my mind, there was no other option. I knew at some point it will come, and I'm going to wait up there, and I'm not going to take anything else. And when I was paralyzed, and when they told me when I was snowboarding the first time that I might not ever walk again, I remember that always at the point where I reached some crazy success, my mindset was, there is no other option. I will walk. I will do everything that it takes that this will happen. And this is what I did. And for some things, like for example, for health, for my health, when I came back to walking, because I walk, yeah, and I dance,
Yeah. Yeah.
you have to take a little bit more action. Like you have to do the
Yeah.
physical thing. For
Yeah.
other things, you might just need to open yourself and your mindset. For business, for example, for many people, it's so much in the mind. You have to open some massive, and you have to just, yeah, like really embrace the different person that you need to be and the different actions that you need to take to really receive and deserve all these
Mm-hmm.
things. But it's a mindset thing in the end. And
Mm-hmm.
also, like getting up for me, if I would have an appointment at 8 o'clock in the morning, my alarm clock rings at 4 o'clock. So I can still have my morning program before
Mm-hmm.
everything. So, and I
Mm-hmm.
think this is the commitment that you have to just to agree to. And once you are there is no way that things cannot happen because you are that person already. So within
Mm-hmm.
you, it happened. And this is
Mm-hmm.
how I think the manifestation process, if you want to call it this way, or getting to your goals works. You are that person already
Mm-hmm.
internally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So resilient mindset, learning from suffering, living in the day, living in the moment, learning to be happy. I like this idea that there's no other option. Um, there's a book called The Source that I read, and I name a lot of different books on the podcast as well. I may not endorse 100% of everything, but it was a book, and I can't remember the author's name, but she was talking about manifestation, and really she was going more with the brain, and she calls it more like a visualization board, of cutting things out, and obviously there's different steps and things like that. But I know that's something that a lot of people have talked about, and there's different thoughts and things like that. So that's why I wanted to ask that question. If someone were to want coaching from you, what does your coaching look like? If I remember correctly, you're certified in a lot of different kinds of coaching and things like that. What would that coaching look like? So if I said, okay, Tina, I want to work with you, sign me up. I'm not in Austria, so we got to do Zoom or something like that. Walk me through that process. What could a person expect?
Well, the first thing is that we just sit together and we would just talk about what is the raw, real perspective that you have on your life. So that's the
Hmm.
first thing. That's where we start. And then I like to really, if this is a one-one setting, I really like to focus on what this person needs in this moment. So there is no pre-framed process. Of course, I have some ideas, but everyone comes from another point. And the most
Mm-hmm.
important thing is to really focus, what does this person in this moment need to have a maximum success? Because I don't want people to like stay on the same level for a long time. What I want people is to experience the fastest progress possible. So because also not just because I like to see them grow, but also because I like to, when you see the first thing happening in your life, then your motivation comes within. It's not so difficult anymore. And I really love to see people coming to my next session and say like, you know what happened? I was like, yes, I don't know what happened, but I don't care because I know you're so about to take the second step.
Yeah.
And this is what I try to do. Like really, I try to remove the first and the biggest obstacle, to open the window just a little bit for that person so they can
Mm-hmm.
just gaze through and see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
And this for me, for many people, because they come to me and they pay me for it, is a good first step to encourage themselves to take the first step. Because in the end, I cannot step for them. I can't just help them to find the courage in them to do the first thing or the first step.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. So I got to ask, you've had so much success, and I can see, I can hear the confidence, the experience. What makes you afraid? Is there anything that you're afraid of? A lot of people are afraid of success. A lot of people are afraid of somebody saying no, or a lot of people are afraid of, what if I leave that job and the next job, falls apart? What about you? How do you handle fear, and um, what makes you afraid of anything?
Genuinely, I am not afraid of a lot of things anymore.
Yeah.
So many things have happened to me, and I know, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you have to take them anyway if you're afraid of it or not. It doesn't change anything.
Yeah.
But I know one thing, and it's an amazing question. I realized that if I'm with people like closely engaged for like business or for relationships or something like that, I'm afraid of their fears because I can't handle my fears, but I cannot handle their fears.
So you're afraid of their fears, that the things that they share.
No, not what they share, what they don't share.
Oh.
Fears often trigger reactions that are not predictable and that make
Mm.
progress impossible. And if I am close to a person, very close to a person, I spend a lot of time in their energy. And there is
Mm.
this saying that you're a product of the 5 people that you're closest, and this is
Mm-hmm.
true. So if I share a lot of time with people that are seriously living their life in fear, it doesn't impact me very much because I would take a step back. But if I would have to spend a lot of time with these people, I can feel that this is a heavy thing for me because I always have to like try to stay in my energy and not connect too deeply to not receive too much of the fear. So I can
Mm.
honestly say, not that I'm afraid of it, but to answer that question truthfully, what makes me afraid is other people's fears.
Mm. Yeah, I appreciate that. Do you ever listen to Tim Ferriss and his podcast, the Tim Ferriss Show?
Sometimes.
So he did a TED Talk years ago, and I think I heard it on maybe his podcast, but I looked it up here recently. And this idea of fear, I have not yet done it, but I'm thinking about doing it. You know, he talked about, because he was on the verge of committing suicide, and thankfully he didn't, and someone I think intervened. But he talked about fear setting as opposed to goal setting. So what he was saying was a lot of the things that hold us back, and everything maybe you're talking about with dreams and love and happiness and accomplishing the things we want, are oftentimes those fears. So what he was suggesting was, well, what if you did fear setting? So what if you look at those fears and you write them out, and okay, what could we do to prevent or to, remove? And I just thought that was a really great idea, because sometimes people go after so many other things, but they're not actually addressing maybe some of the root causes. I don't know if you've ever thought about that, or your thoughts on that. Have you ever done anything like that with
I
fear
find
setting?
I find this idea great because actually that's what you do in coaching. You're looking to remove people's fears because only because of their fears they're not progressing towards their goal. Because if you don't have fears, if you knew like today that you would achieve whatever you want, why wouldn't you already do it?
Mm-hmm.
So that
Mm-hmm.
would be crazy. So the
Yeah.
only thing that is holding you back is a fear that you probably don't, or you don't deserve it, or you're not good enough, or whatever that is. So the thing is, what is holding you back is fear. So if you have a fear setting, then you already know basically where your direction is. And the
Yes.
first thing is always remove the fear.
Mm-hmm.
But when the fear is gone, remove. Fear is not unhealthy. Having fear is good. But leading your life or letting fear lead your life, that is unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
So understanding that there is a fear in some situations in life is great. When you're in a burning house, you should have fear because otherwise it's the same bad, So it's
Yeah.
not unreasonable that this exists. But
Yeah.
you manage the fear or fear manages you, and that's the question.
What do you recommend for people who struggle with rejection? So people are often very afraid of someone saying no, someone not being responsive to maybe their idea or thought. That certainly happens with dating, when people are, meeting people and things like that. Public speaking is a big one as well. What tips or thoughts do you have to help people who are afraid of rejection?
So the quick thing that everyone can do for themselves, it's based on Katie Byron's work. And there is a thing, she has these questions. And one of the questions is being grateful for the rejection. So
Mm.
her thing is, I am grateful that happened to me and I can't wait for it to happen again.
Mm.
So, and it's difficult. I agree. But eventually, if you're just not, it's it's what you have in your mind. It's not that someone says no to you. It's what is connected to the saying no. Like, no, I'm not good enough. And then we come back to the fear. It's like, why is this person saying no? Oh, they don't like me. Why? Maybe they just don't like the idea of what you have. Or they're not, like, you know, in relationships, let's say like this person says no to you, but they're in a relationship. You just haven't asked the question. For you, it was just your question. And because of the fear, you were not open to ask a second question. Why are you not open for me, for my relationship, or my offer that I have to make for you? Maybe they have their own reasons, and this reason is not even connected to you. So, but because of the fear, you run life like this, and you don't open yourself up and understand that there's so many different reasons for people to say no. And let's say 80% have nothing to do with you, especially in the beginning stage of relationships, because they don't know you. So if they reject you, there is most likely an internal reason for that, and has nothing to do with you. And on the other hand, so are you liking everyone? Have you never said no to anyone that came to you and like asked you for a relationship? Probably you had. And if not, why?
Saying yes too much. I think you're right. You know, it's interesting. And there's a new stat I heard about, 85% of the things we worry about never happen, which I find very interesting. I've been doing a lot of studying on worry. A couple of weeks ago, Tina, my wife and I, we went to this 70s birthday party. So I had these sideburns. I haven't had sideburns in a long time, and my sister calls this my crowbar mustache. And I bought an afro and all that. I had a blast. And so now I'm stuck in the 70s. But I'm going somewhere with this because you mentioned so many people. It's not really even about us. And I've had this now like 2 or 3 weeks. And it's funny because people are like, oh, you got something new. I'm like, I've had this for like 2 or 3 weeks, but no, it's like people don't even notice because so many people are in their own world and they're not thinking about you. But I think that happens to a lot of us. We think everyone is thinking about us all the time, and it's simply not the case. And so I think that can help us with maybe not taking their rejection as seriously. Okay, they said no, it's not the end of the world. And you did ask, and I like what I think it's Lewis Howes who talks about this one phrase that he's used before. What's the chance? And I used that. I used that at a hotel we stayed in Seattle, Washington, in April. And I say, hey, what's the chance you can just knock off the parking while we're here? And she said, yeah, I'll do that for you. I couldn't help but smile because it's like, if she says no, okay, that's not a big deal. We'll just pay for the parking. But if you say yes, if you ask, they may say yes. So you never know. You're still always going to be able to know unless you actually ask. So I appreciate that answer. It's not. I think we just get so caught up in our own selves and we forget about other people are actually worried and thinking about themselves as well.
Exactly. And to add a little bit to that, the best dating strategy, basically used from men that like get a lot of one-night stands, is just asking a lot more than others. So if you want, as a man, a one-night stand, the strategy obviously is not for me, and I'm not supporting this very much, but the strategy is ask more than others. At some point, you'll get a yes. And I mean, how many no's you have collected before? Think of that. So
yeah, so we can't be afraid to say or ask. And if we're afraid to ask, business, relationships, favor, being on a podcast, people, what are they going to say? Then yeah, we'll miss out on a lot of opportunities. Yeah,
exactly.
I appreciate that. What books? I love books. Any book recommendations for me in the audience?
Oh, I like. What do I like? I mean, what my latest books. I like to read sometimes just for just for distraction, just to have a funny book. I read audiobooks, and
Yeah, so
I read a lot of books. Like the last book that I was really moved deeply, it was The Course in Miracles.
What's it called?
A Course in Miracles. I heard it so many times, like it was mentioned by Eckhart Tolle and then by a lot of other people that I followed or that I was listening to. I was like, okay, maybe I should read this book. And it just tells you about how miracle arrived in your life. And I was really moved because of the simpleness this book offered to understand how things happen in your life. I'm not saying that I'm reading it again and again and again, but I think, maybe it's just the first 2 pages that you read and then you understand everything, because it's repeating itself over the whatever 600 pages that it has.
Wow.
But if you go into this book and you read the details and you understand that it's easy, everything is easy, and the only thing that you have to do is basically be in the moment and accept what happens, not judge it, not be against it, not do anything, just be with it. And when you incorporate that a little bit in your life gets so much more calm and peaceful. Because at the end of the day, and this is what we don't usually think of, we cannot change the things that happen to us. And if we are mad about it, if we fight with people or whatever, the things don't change. They happen. They're gone. It's the past. So the only thing that we can do is say, okay, that happened. And how are we going to continue? This is the only thing that will give us a different result. So, yeah, it was at some point, and basically maybe it moved me because it was my life. I, at some point, had to accept that now I'm paralyzed. It doesn't change. And it did change, good, but only the moment that I accepted that now it is there, I was able to take a step. Because before, I wasn't looking at steps. I was just looking at what happened to me. And I think this is providing so much growth, or preventing so much growth in this world, because as long as we prefer nagging over acceptance, we keep holding on what's not good for us. And we don't have the perspective that something else can happen.
I wanted to ask you too, how long were you paralyzed?
It wasn't actually very long. So the thing was, the real paralyzation, like from the whole leg, that just lasted for some hours. Then it went down to my feet, and that lasted for quite a time. And then I went, it was in China, Mongolia. So
wow.
I didn't do anything there.
Yeah.
So I was just, when I came home, I went to the doctors and we tried some strategies and injections into my back and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I can say that 6 months after the first treatment, I was able to really normally walk. Two of my fingers,
your toes.
I don't know, toes. Oh my God, I'm sorry. I'm not native. So I was like, I know only the French word. What is that? So 2 of my toes, they're still not 100%.
Wow.
That's fine. So, yeah. But it was the moment I accepted that this is what is right now, and that I will overcome it. This was the moment that in my mind, I wasn't paralyzed anymore. And that was, I think that made the difference. And this took me about 2 months.
Yeah, amazing. Is there a difference between energy and vibrations?
Well, I personally don't think there is so much energy, because every energy has a vibration.
Okay.
And I think maybe if you want to divide the words, then you can say the vibration is what you give the energy. The energy is there anyway. So okay. I think that would be my explanation to that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I've heard different things with vibration, and I know you do energy coaching, and just kind of thinking about that. And we use that in our, everyday vocabulary. People say, they walked into their room and they could feel the energy was bad, like sports teams, right? They could just sense there was something off. So I'm always curious about the idea of energy and vibrations and things like that. What are some things people can do to boost their energy?
What they love. Like for example, for a lot of people, especially women, it's dancing. Dance as if no one's watching in your apartment, in front of the mirror. It doesn't matter. Put your music and dance. For example, it's an amazing push in energy. But also being in nature, for some people, is this, like connecting to grass or to the tree, or gardening. So basically what gives you energy is always doing what you love and what connects you most to yourself. So I'm using this dancing example because normally when you try to dance as if no one is watching, you are not focused on anything outside, but you're just having fun.
Yeah.
And this takes away the thought. So maybe you're not doing it in front of a million people. That's maybe intimidating, but for yourself at home, it's okay. And
Yeah.
so this, like, really do something that really, like, makes you, yay, embrace
Yeah.
the world. And
Yeah.
that's going to give you so much energy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exercise is definitely something for me, and yeah, having different passions and things like that will go a long way. Tina, have you ever thought about? Maybe you're already doing it. Have you ever thought about like having a retreat in Austria, where like people you traveled to a place? Have you ever thought about doing something like that, or are you doing that right now?
I have thought about having a retreat. Yes, not in Austria. Actually, I was thinking about a place where it's warmer.
Oh, okay. Yes,
But
it's
I
cold
have been
there.
thinking about that. Yeah.
Very
No, I
cool.
was thinking about a place. Austria also doesn't have a sea, so. But if it's my decision, then it would be next to the sea because I
Yes.
love that, and also I feel like the sea per se has a lot of energy, and you
Yeah.
can like the all these waves and the motion, the beach and the sun and everything together.
Yeah.
You can really grab from that. So I would have it there. I'm not
Yeah.
yet sure where that will be, but it will be at a location next to the sea.
Awesome. Yeah. Final thought, and then we'll wrap up here. I want you to stay on the line, but we'll wrap up here. Final thought.
For me, it's like I wish for everyone to open the window just a little bit, let the light in, and just for a moment maybe think that what is out there is a little bit better than
Mm,
what you have inside. And
mm,
just for this one thought, try to peek out and maybe take the first step, just the first one.
mm. Well said. Tina, thank you so much. It's been so much fun and fantastic talking to you. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much, Tina.
It was great being with you. Thank you very much for having me.